Hi, this is Praios and I'm a professional gambler. And yeah, let me resize my a bit because you don't need myself so big. Today we will see how good Charlie Carrel is in PLO. He will play 1-2 PLO on PokerStars, I think. And yeah, if you play on PokerStars, definitely get Holdem Manager or how's the other thing called? Pokertracker. Because with this tools you leave so much information behind and on the table, and you could easily have this, and it's also not that expensive to buy this one, so highly recommended if you try to play profitable. You will have all the stats and data about your opponents, which will get lost otherwise. Even if you be very observative, you still will miss things and will never have it as accurate as this one will have. Yeah, if you're also looking to boost your game, definitely get a solver. This PLO Trainer is one idea to do so. And this will also be the program we are using, but not this one. This is the web version. I will use the desktop version. And yeah, this is PLO Vision. This is another product, but from another side. The one I was mentioning is from JNandez and his site. The PLO Mastermind, and yeah, this one is from Galfond. Yeah, as these things are now out of the way, I think we can jump into the video. Although I forgot something. Now we also got the PLO 5-card trainer, and yeah, PLO 5-card is way more fishy than the other PLO games, and also you can get ahead of your competition way more when you start training with this solver, which got released recently. And yeah, another thing also, if you are interested in money, cryptocurrency, investing, I also recommend that you look into my other channel. I think I made some very good content already, so feel free to check that out as well. But now we can finally get into the video. So let's start.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video over here on YouTube. Today we are up for a...
By the way, we will have even more value from this because it's not only me commenting, but also JNandez. So 2 coaches, 1 video.
treat, because I'm going to review one of Charlie Carrel's videos on YouTube, this time playing Pot Limit Omaha. This video is called How to Crush 200 Zoom PLO with No Studying, Smiley, which is indeed a good question. And I'm very much looking forward to see how Charlie approaches the great game / the dark side, Pot Limit Omaha. And we're going to dive here into the action, well, pretty much now. I have to say, I like Charlie Carrel and also his videos. He's entertaining, he's fun, he has some good stuff to say. And I enjoy watching him battling Linus Love heads up at high stakes. And I can say this man likes to bluff and he's not afraid. So let's see how he approaches it. This video has been released February 9th. It has a lot of likes and also few dislikes. So that makes all sense. Looks like people have been happy with this video.
Ooh, why does he still have dislikes? I thought that they got removed. Or is this video a bit older?
So I'm wondering.
Let's do this.
Indeed.
Let's do this. All right. I've got a little
Yeah, I watched about a minute of this video already. Spoiler alert. It's 20 minutes long.
admission to make before we start crushing 200 Zoom.
Let's crush.
Well, it's 6 max. I thought this might
I
be heads
usually
up.
do this, but I've been drinking.
You should throw this one away. Pretty sure. Let's see.
I've been drinking some
Oh, he
mead.
does.
Yeah, that's
I'll
always
play
a great combo. The great game and some drinking. I don't know what mead is in terms of drinking is.
It's the first time in my life I've ever had mead.
Maybe you guys in the comment section can enlighten me.
I've got to be honest, it's pretty nice. It's
Let me also adjust the volume a little bit. Feels like it's a bit too low at the
It
moment.
seems hype though.
It's kind of exactly what I've always wished that that wine would taste like.
Can't hear Charlie.
All right, so this is the first decision. King, 7-5. This is a hand you want to 3-bet in the small blind.
But that's an issue with the content from JNandez. So he had his mic very loud, but the other one not. He wants to 3-bet this hand. Let's check if this is correct. I mean, this feels close, but probably is correct. Yeah, I think it's correct, but that's definitely a close one. King, 5-7. King, 5-7 with one suit. Yeah, but even the solver is a little bit undecided, but it looks that it's more on the side of the rebetting.
At 200 zoom, there isn't that much of a cold calling range in the small blind just because the rake structure is relatively high. You pay 7 big blinds 100. And if you have kings that have some level of connectivity and a king high suit, you generally 3-bet in the small blind. I'm going to use PLO Trainer in order to dissect some of these hands here in greater detail.
Yeah, by the way, this is the PLO Trainer web version. I use the desktop version, which you just saw.
Into this first one, so button opens. This is 500 PLO in terms of the rake structure, so you will see a little bit more cold calling. Although you can argue that if you get a good amount of rake back on 200 zoom, that you are close to the rake you're paying at 500 zoom / the sim. Anyway, King 7-5 will be a 3-bet with the king high suit, and if you filter for kings that are single suited, you will find that 32.5% of the kings are calling. So calling kings that are not extremely strong.
Oh, interesting. Look at this. Some kings are even folding, the very weak ones, even with a weak suit. Go. Fuck. This was definitely not intended.
Is certainly a decent option in the small blind. King 7-5 with exactly 2 suits is a little bit too connected to justify calling, although it's not a huge punt or anything. It is okay.
It tastes really nice. It tastes like honey.
It was so interesting to hear what Charlie has to say, but it's just too... The volume is just too low. As he's a very entertaining guy, like JNandez already said. Flop was check. After he just called pre-flop. Yeah, I would give up as well on the flop. And yeah, the turn is bad, so still giving up.
All right, we're going to be checking.
Yeah, so flop would be check call, like you don't love.
Yeah, I mean, check call is... Yeah, I didn't saw the card shot, so check call probably is the way to go. Yeah, now it's check fold.
Of it, obviously. Turn will be check fold.
I guess we're just going to be checking again. Here, I guess we're going to be opening. It seems like an open.
Is he not having a shirt on? Okay, random.
Yeah, king 10-5 tri-suited in the cutoff is pretty much a break-even hand.
I would wager it's an open.
Well, a lot of the times, No Limit Holdem players kind of overvalue big pairs in PLO, although, like in PLO, you should always think about it, unless you have aces, like aces are, like the gap between aces and kings is much larger in PLO than in No Limit Holdem.
Yeah, it's so huge, the gap. I mean, aces are so much better than kings.
Like aces is a printer, you always VPIP. And with kings and queens and jacks, you are always looking for reasonable side cards to enter the pot.
Yeah, especially if you go below kings, this is even... the pairs become even weaker.
Also, one thing you should think about is if your hand is tri-suited, so you have 3 of the same suit, the value goes down, obviously, because you are less likely to make a flush, and that is considered in GTO as well. So here we have king 10-10-5 tri-suited, it is folding in the cutoff. And if we hide the 0% frequencies, which basically shows us the hypothetical open, we can see that open raising is at, minus what is this, 0.05. So it's pretty much up to the table, and up to your gusto, so to speak. Also, if you end up paying more rake, in theory, you can open a few more hands because your opponents behind are supposed to defend less out of the blinds, and also...
But I think this argumentation is a bit flawed because the lower you play, the more recreational or semi-recreational players are in there, and they are usually looser than they should be. Yeah. So I would not recommend to be opening wider because I rely on the fact that people fold more because the rake is so high.
out of the button. But obviously, at lower stakes, a lot of people don't really follow those guidelines, and they actually end up playing way too loose, in which case King 10, 10, 5 tri-suited could be a fold.
Okay, let's
All right, so
set
we're
that as
obviously
well.
just going to be taking these to showdown.
Yep, check folding, and opponent shuts down with the straight. I think opponent's check back on the flop is good. He wants to see a turn, doesn't want to get check raised on the flop. He's not going to make many better hands fold. All good. And on the river, this hand, by the way, for all the knowledge.
On the river, this is... Does he consider to value bet? I think you can't with a paired board and a flush out where I'm not blocking any flush at all.
No Limit Holdem players that might watch this is not a value bet.
Okay, he also says that it's not a value bet.
We're losing against, straight.
Indeed. Next hand, ace 9, 7, 6 double. This is a full frequency squeeze. So this type of hand is blocking aces. And basically, the reason you're squeezing this hand is not because you're pushing equity or because the hand looks kind of nice. It is because you're trying to push out kings and queens that open raise behind and not.
Yeah, so you should not squeeze when you playing against opponents who are not folding their big pairs. But this also appears a bit loose to me, but let's see if he's right. I guess he is, because he's way more active these days than I am. But we will check if ace 6, 7, 9 is a squeeze. Ace 6, 7, 9. It is. Is it a squeeze if we make the gap bigger? I think then it's not a squeeze anymore. So if the 6 becomes a 5, I say it's not a squeeze anymore. And it's still a squeeze. Wow. When this becomes a 4, it can't be a squeeze anymore, right? Yeah. Okay. Then it's closer to a fold. Okay, so you have to be looser than I expected in these spots.
Behind in front, as well as hands like ace, king, queen, jack, like tri-suited, or a hand like ace, king, jack, 5, single. So basically you can get better hands to fold while simultaneously you're holding a hand that flops pretty smooth, is the way we like to say it in PLO, which basically means that you're able to continue in a lot of textures. And that is very important when the stack to pot ratio shrinks down. So your ability to realize your equity needs to be very high as you can as the SPR goes down. Imagine that you only have a pot size bet left on the flop and you have a hand like king, king, 7, deuce, rainbow, which can almost never call a jam because it doesn't really connect with the board. And that's like a nightmare scenario. So in general, you want to have smooth hands in 3 and 4 bet pots.
I think we like it more this way. I can't see the chat anymore, but it seems like nobody's in here at this time, or only lurkers. So this way we can also see JNandez.
And smooth hands basically are defined by holding multiple components. You know, connectivity is one component, high card strength is one component, suitedness is one component, right? So you have, in this case, 3 components. Your hand is double suited, it does have connectivity, and it does have some high suits in there. And not only high suits, but also some high cards in there.
Good explanation. Nothing to add from my side.
So this hand is prone to flop a lot of different stuff on a lot of different boards. And again, it is kind of a semi-bluff, but you can still call 4 bets with it. The initial open raiser as well is supposed to fold against a squeeze if he would be 100 big blinds deep, like 50% of the time, which people generally don't do as much, which kind of takes away from the value a little bit, but still I would be squeezing this all day long. This guy is shallower, which doesn't hurt the situation because this guy, I think, is a professional player, or at least a good player.
Seems like also like Charlie has no marking system, or I mean, he's probably not playing that much PLO, so that's why he probably has no color coding for the players. But he should put colors on them to faster identify the player type. And I also recommend to do that. You all should do this as well.
And that means that he's short stacking with a plan. And if you play short, you can actually call even less 3 bets because you have less implied odds. So the fold equity should be pretty high in this case.
Now, my estimates would say that we want to be squeezing this and then saying,
Good.
oh, fuck, he's shallow. Oops.
It's fine. It might be even better that he's shallow. This guy calls, which makes sense. Like his cold calling range was already calibrated to face a squeeze, oftentimes. King 10-5, you have the nut flush draw, nothing else.
With nut flush draw, nothing else. I think if you want to check back and see a free card, it would suck so badly if you bet and get raised, and then you probably have to get it in. So checking back should be the optimal solution.
Like this situation, as so often in PLO, is completely driven by the stack to pot ratio. When the stack to pot ratio gets really small, then you have a huge incentive to trying to push your opponent of equity unless you have the absolute super nuts. So in this case, you would basically employ like a small betting strategy, like half pot or third pot, and then potting some of the hands. And obviously this hand has no incentive to bet small because you're not trying to get a 10 along, you're not trying to get queen jack along, you're trying to actually push out some equity or commit yourself to the pot. Like both is fine. So I would say shoving is good here.
Okay, that's like a different opinion. I mean, I definitely agree if you bet, you want to bet big because you will be committed anyways. I think this board interacts decent with his cold calling range. I personally would check back, but I hope... not sure if you get three-way spots in the trainer. Although this is like, how do we do this? This will also mess up the pot to stack ratio. Yeah, we basically cannot check this. Let's do it. Let's see if this works out. No, this we will not have post flop sims for that. So let's see what happens. We do it this way. So the board will be king 10-5, king 10-6. Okay. Best we will get. So he checks to us. What are we supposed to do? Keep in mind that the pot to stack ratio in this example is a bit lower, but let's see what the recommendations are here. We got A6. Fuck. Fuck. This is actually bad. Because we got more outs in this case. So we have to change our hands somehow that we don't gain any outs. 4, 6, 7, something like that with diamonds. Do we have a backdoor draw? No. Hope this hand is 3-betting. Well, that's interesting. It's going against everything. Sad. So seems like we want to bet small and probably still fold with the weak flush draw. And with the good flush draw, you're supposed to check back at this pot to stack ratio. But it's a bit... the pot to stack ratio is a bit lower in the example. But checking back can't be that bad, as you can see. And the sizing choice from JNandez is never used, but I think it's correct if you use the pot sizing in the situation he's in. So yeah, we have two different opinions here. I think both are probably fine because, yeah, the EV can't be that much different. So let's see what happens.
You could also check behind, but it's a little bit nitty.
Okay, he says that he could also check behind. So yeah, we are sort of on the same page.
Pot ratio is what, 70 is like about 2.
But we are gonna be.
But
Guess we're just gonna be potting it.
good. Mr.
I was
GTL.
trying to think of something fancy to do, but
Well, the fanciest thing you can do there would be to check behind.
alright.
But betting small is definitely bad.
4 cards is nice. It's hard to miss a flop, right?
Yeah, but also it's hard to miss the flop for your opponents, you know, don't forget that.
Yeah, that's why I was saying check behind.
So now we're entering territory that I haven't watched. Call.
Yeah, definitely call. I mean, blind versus blind, in the big blind with position, you can defend very wide and getting a discount too because you already have $2 in.
All right, we've got 2 boards.
I placed 2 tables, yeah.
More fun. We flop.
That's a good defend. Not a hand you want to 3-bet, and you flop middle pair open-ended, backdoor down flush draw. Just go for the check call.
Open-ender and
Good advice here. And
pair and back.
wow, pot. That's a huge sizing, but I think we still have to check call.
Backdoor flush draw. On
Backdoor
this
not
one,
flush
we've
draw.
got pair.
And this is we're getting a very good price. Our hand it sucks, but I think we want to peel one and see what happens on the turn.
This is a fold, by the way. Like if you
Really? This is a fold, by the way, he says. This is the fold, by the way. This is interesting. I think it's definitely close. You probably don't lose much by folding. But where is my Holdem Manager? Yeah, not Holdem Manager, Pokertracker. So, blind versus blind. Fold, raise, call. Jack 5-6, Jack. Let's take this one instead. And the only size we can face is 3/4. That's a bigger bet already. So against 3/4, I would definitely fold. But against half pot, I think it's okay to stay in the pot. Let's see. King, queen, 6-8. Clubs. No, clubs is, we don't have a backdoor flush draw. So in this case, it is hearts, clubs, spades, something like that. Let's go. It's a fold. How bad is this fold? Not costing that much. I think, especially because people shut down a lot on turns and you show resistance. I mean, this is also like an exploitable approach. I mean, yeah, maybe he's right. I think against half pot it's okay to call. Against 3/4 I wouldn't call. What was I going to say? Yeah, he should definitely use Holdem Manager or Pokertracker. He's not having stats, and this takes away a lot of information which he could have at a very small price.
have mid pair, you need some sort of backup, like a gutter, backdoor flush draw, decent backdoor straight draw outs. Like this hand is.
I think he's only used to the bigger sizing from the solver.
Just slightly too weak to continue. In PLO, backdoor draws matter a lot. And like a middle pair hand is not good enough to continue if you don't have those backdoor draws. It's very much based on like backdoor equity.
Backdoors and some overs. I think we're meant to call this.
I mean, Charlie sees some backdoors, but the backdoors are a little bit too weak. Not a huge punt though. Here we're facing a pot size c-bet, which is kind of unusual. Like I wouldn't recommend a pot size c-bet at a high SPR like this. But usually when people do that, they don't fold against the raise, which means they're strong, or at least strong-ish. That being said, the hand is too strong to fold and definitely too weak to raise, given the pot size sizing. I mean, it is generally just too weak to raise. Just call.
Here we're gonna.
Good advice.
I'm gonna check calls.
Okay, good. Turn, range check.
Nice.
Obviously, the ace is not good for the big blind's check calling range. Looks like on the 5, the hand checked through, which is, again, fine. Like, your options are quite limited with this hand because you're just doing so poorly against any value hand, especially in the turn.
If we have bottom of range here, actually, we can start bluffing.
Yeah, that's a good point there on the river, by the way, on a 4.
What? He's raising. That's not correct. Should call again.
Here we're just going to check shove.
Check shove turn on an ace. Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? You know, like your opponent's like the stack to pot ratio there. Let's have a quick look. He has 140 behind. There's
Okay, the pot to stack ratio is a bit smaller. Maybe shoving isn't too bad. Just looked at his stack, but his opponent is way more shallow. So yeah, it's okay-ish to do calling and raising, I think. Yeah, although the more I think about it with this stack size, probably raising does good job. I mean, you are lost on a lot of rivers, especially the diamond bonds.
40 in the middle. Yeah, what are you going to do? Like your opponent can have an ace with an ace high flush draw. He could have a hand like a straight draw flush draw kind of combo. Maybe has a hand like 8-6 that you're completely crushing. Usually don't. But the thing is, like your hand is strong now, but on a lot of rivers will have trouble realizing equity, like having trouble basically extracting value / check calling on certain turns, certain rivers. So you're better off just removing the positional disadvantage and just shoving in at this point. Even though you have no full equity.
We're just going to check shove.
Opponent shows up with the nut flush draw and ace-6 as well. So it's not a great spot. We still have the open ender though. Some 2-pair outs.
Dodge stuff. What's he got? He's got ace-6.
Lol, he has he has a cash out option available. You should also deactivate that because you are paying a little fee to PokerStars, so never do that. Always play the hand out.
We have the straight draw. He has the flush draw. And we have a 7. He's got a 10.
Oh my god,
That's unlucky.
Ace-10 is good.
Ace-10 wins it, huh? Huh?
Unlucky though. Well played though.
Nice hand, my friend. Nice hand.
So it looks like he runs it once by default. A respectable decision.
Make up with kings.
King, 10-7. Obviously against the button open, you snap 3-bet this. We learned this already in the first.
Yeah, but against Cutoff, this is a different beast. That's a tough one, actually. Let's see what JNandez thinks about it.
First hand. Against the Cutoff, gotta be more careful. Like the Cutoff range is about 30%, buttons range about 50. I would say with the 2-gapper, like between the 10 and the 7, there's a 2-gapper. We just want to call this hand, but let's look it up.
Yeah,
that's why it makes sense to have a software like this. If you want to check out the software, by the way, PLOtrainer.app. PLOtrainer.app.
I got it.
No, this hand is strong enough to 3-bet actually with the king high suit against the cutoff. This would actually be a hand that would fold against the 4-bet. So if we 3-bet, face the 4-bet, 100 big blind steep, king 10-7, single suited is going to fold. Like calling the 4-bet would be a pretty big punt. King, single suited in general is folding all the time, basically. Like, that's like your primary 3-bet fold. Because the hand isn't smooth enough, and the general idea is if you get 4-bet holding kings, your chances of outdrawing aces, which is by far the majority of the 4-betting range, are too slim in order to justify making the big call against the 4-bet. There are a lot of other hands that are smooth, they're double suited, they're connected. They can call a 4-bet, but not the kings, as we just saw. Like all the kings are folding that are 3-betting, that are singles.
Very well explained. He does a very good job commentating this action.
Suited. This is one of them.
Flat again. It's not the best kings. Opening, very pretty hand.
Yep.
Here, some blockers.
Well, you have some future
PLO,
blockers, yeah.
I think are a little bit nicer than blockers in Holdem.
That's generally true, but you got to be careful on ace high boards.
Depends on the spot, obviously.
Yeah.
This little
I mean, this spot is shady. If he's not checking, he has to let it go.
King of clubs here.
You still want to check fold this hand, by the way. Like hoping the club will hit on the turn and you can bluff your opponent out of the pot is just like not enough. Obviously, you have a
Seems like JNandez and I play very similar.
jack. You would need.
I mean, we both train with Solver, so it should be the case. And it's also the Solver he designed, so we use the same product. Well,
at least, at the very least, you would need a backdoor flush draw to justify the call here.
It's looking pretty juicy.
Juicy. Well.
Oh, that's a kind of tough one too. Against 2 opponents. Guess betting can't be too bad.
Three-way pot, queen 9-9. So he
Yeah, I mean, checking is also not too bad.
the open raise got 2 callers. I would just check this flop. Like in multi-way pots, in this middling position, you want to check a ton.
I'm a bit too scared of a flush coming in. That's why I want to bet. But if we get raised, we are definitely in a terrible spot. But I don't expect to get raised that often. If we get raised, by the way, we might even have to fold. Although these guys all are not full stack. But yeah, we could be drawing that already. That's the issue.
But also, like when you start building a pot with this hand, there aren't like that many amazing runouts, and you can still like trap your opponents into value betting worse when you vote up on the turn, for example. Like the straight completing cards are oftentimes helping you. And if the turn would be something like a 4 of clubs and your opponents are betting, you can still, first of all, call, but then also turn your hand into a bluff on the river representing a vote. So there are like different possibilities. If you look into like some multi-way, what would I do in this spot, by the way? I would say it would depend a lot on the stats that I have on my opponents. If you check a hand like this, your goal is obviously for the button to take a stab, and that's where the value is coming from. Or for your opponents to take stabs on turns and rivers when you improve. And honestly, like maybe against these two guys, I don't know who the button is, you might be better off just betting small and getting some like kings to continue, flush draws to continue, instead of trying to get the value by checking. So you should always think about when you check a good hand, where is the value coming from? Or when you have a good hand, is it coming from your opponent paying off worse, or is it coming from your opponents stabbing with worse? And that oftentimes depends on the tendencies of your opponents. So in this case, I can definitely see both possibilities. If you had a hand like Queen 9, I think checking is the default because you're blocking the board a lot. And if you have a hand like Queen Queen, you generally want to bet because you're unblocking a 9. But if you have like Queen Queen with a club, you can also justify checking because you will see a lot of folds against your bet. And if you look into some multi-way sims, so 100 big blinds, single raise pot, cutoff versus button versus big blind, which is kind of similar. The flop is Queen 9-9, so it is a paired board that is single suited. So Queen 9-9 is here, and if it checks to the open raiser in the cutoff, so for this half pot size sizing, we are basically checking full range. And if we have this hand, I mean, if you check full range, you just check full range, you know, like you will find some of the queens that are betting, especially if we don't have a 9, which is kind of the idea that I was mentioning. Thing though is,
I mean, the situation he got up was a lot. Has not that many similarities. I mean, it's not exactly matching with one. I think bet is fine, but yeah, he also is going back and forth between betting and checking. It's definitely close.
Again, if you check a good hand, the value really comes from your opponent stabbing. And that's like one of the major questions here in play.
Okay,
So GTO would say check, and Mr. Charlie Carrel, aka Mr. GTO, in PLO is checking. Good. This hand, when check on the flop, he turns a double gutter on an 8, so a 9 to a straight, a jack to a straight. Still has the king of clubs and 2 kings. So generally speaking, checkback ranges are really weak in this game. People are not slow playing enough, which means you can probe turns aggressively, like in this case.
I think on this board, they might very easily have a pot controlling hand with like a pair and a flush draw, which call at least once, or an ace does not want to get raised. So I'm not that thrilled about betting turn, unless I have additional reads on my opponent.
So this play here is fine. He could also just check and then call. It's probably going to be quite indifferent.
Gonna be potting the turn over
I like the sizing though. Like if you bet, you want to pot. And then here it checks through as a delay. You want to go like 1/3. Could also go half.
Cross again.
Yeah,
I would go for
plan.
1/3.
I think I'm actually gonna go pretty small.
This guy is a beast. He's crushing so far.
Pretty much everything but flush draws in pretty terrible shape.
Now the delayed raise. I mean, whatever. We just call and then see what happens.
The min raise.
Yeah, we also got quite a good price, but we hate it already. I mean, I would hate it. But yeah, let's see. River.
We not re-raise.
We also look kind of weak because we did not bet the flop. And he, I mean, Yeah, most of the time if that happens in a bad spot, to be honest. But yeah, we have to call once with our hand.
You got like double paired deuce, deuce, king, king, or
Oh,
something.
don't shove. I mean, there's no value in shoving, really. There's no worse hand that will stack off. In general, I haven't watched this video. There are some crazy guys out there, but like assuming this guy is not completely nuts, he will have like queen nine, queen queen very often when the money goes in. So like you want to keep his range as wide as
Yeah, I mean, raising is suicidal.
Deuce,
possible.
deuce, 8, 8.
Don't do it, Charlie. Just call.
Blocking a ton of them. And his kings and aces he'll bet on the flop.
No, but why are you raising them? There's no action from weaker.
What do you got?
He's quite undecided, you can tell. He's pressing a lot of buttons.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a typical mistake from No Limit Holdem players. I think, oh, I got trips, I have to get all the money in. But yeah, in this case, this is, yeah, suicidal. Very bad play.
Okay.
I don't know what you got.
Okay, get some snap fold.
I mean, this was still insanely bad because his opponent was probably bluffing. And he might have continued to bluff. I mean, if he thinks he has the best hand, the best line of action is to just call and call rivers and not push your opponent off the bluff. And if your opponent continues, you are fucked all the time because he has you beat every single time. I mean, your kicker also is not good.
All right. Like, that's the first decision I would probably have disagreed with.
Fair
or
enough.
I do disagree with. Like, you just want to call there. Not a big deal. King, king, 10, 6, straightforward fold against under the gun.
Actually, very good at
Like, even multi-way here, you will have so much trouble realizing your equity, you just want to fold.
folding sets with kings in PLO. It's like a little
And I mean, now it's just, oh my
No!
god, wait, is he just snap ripping? Again, there is a huge difference between the gap of aces to kings in PLO versus Holdem, right? In Holdem, aces and kings, you just go broke with them pre-flop kind of regardless. In PLO, going broke with kings pre is generally a punt. It is generally a punt. Like, look, if you have ace, king, king, 10 double suited and you get 3-bet by the button opening the cutoff and you get it in, like, cool. That's a fine play. But this is very different. We're facing super tight ranges and a squeeze. I mean, the 3-bet range or the squeezing range is extremely tight. They're supposed to be like kings are completely cooked.
Let's see if Charlie changes his mind, but if he puts in the money, this is extremely bad.
So this is a snap fold. Let's have a look how this plays out in the solver, but just like to emphasize the point. And kind of like
The snap
show
fold.
what kinds of hands would consider coming into the pot here, which aren't many, you know, kind of like a 4-bet or fold situation. If we have a hand that is not aces, it tells you like king, king, jack, jack, double would be a push, but it is assuming certain things about card removal here that would make this a plus V push, and it could be okay. But in general, like if you end up having kings, you know, you end up folding 86% of those, and all the kings that are not folding, they either have an ace and are double suited, or they're basically like double paired. Maybe you can squeeze in like a king, king, 10, 9 double, assuming some card removal effects in place here, but you're not going to print with any of those. So in general, unless you have the best kings ever, you just want to fold here.
All right, if you got
no.
aces,
Rip.
you got aces, my friend.
Not
He has
even
aces.
giving
I
it
mean, I
a
haven't seen
second
this
thought.
footage, but this is PLO.
But if you don't, I'm in great shape.
No, that's also another misconception. If you have king, king, 10, 6 single, you're not in great shape against like any hand. Like,
Great shape. I mean, yeah, that's it. Okay. Okay.
it is not a hand that has an equity advantage against like most of the squeezing ranges, even if your opponent doesn't have aces. Like, you're not crushing as you would be in No Limit Holdem when you run into, I don't know, ace, queen, and you have kings.
I think what will happen now, he will be crushed very badly.
All right.
Even like this hand, whatever this hand is going to have very reasonable equity against the king, king, 10, 6.
If he calls,
But
it's
look,
not aces.
if you start out playing PLO, first time no studying, you have kings who can blame you to get the money in. But
I mean, also, I think in No Limit Holdem, it's like a very slim chance that you got aces. It's like 0.5% or something. So a very low number. In PLO, it's 2.5% that you got aces. He probably does not know that.
at home, don't do this. Don't get it.
I mean, let's can get the exact sec number. Can we? Well, I think we don't. We can't in this program. I would have to open another one. Let's do this. This, by the way, is also a very great tool, and I'm not even affiliated or anything. So, Pro Poker Tools, it's called. And if there are non-GTO spots, we can really easy figure out why is this not showing a percentage. That's so star. So we need a calculator as well, that I can make my point. So 6 cents out of 1,326 are aces. So it's even less than 5%. So, but it's almost 5%. 5%, 0.5%. You will have aces in Holdem. And let's now compare this with Pot Limit Omaha. And this will be 961. It should be about 2.5%. Versus, so many combinations here. Ka-ching, yeah, almost 2.7%. So that's a huge difference. So you have aces quite a lot and kings too. So this is a big punt, like JNandez loves to say.
In the kings, let's see what they turn over. Aces and rando. So he's even like that's I mean, obviously card
he has the worst equity of them all.
Removal is a thing right now in terms of the equities that are being displayed, but Queen 553 is actually has more chances to win than King.
Queen 553 also is quite terrible play.
10-6, which is pretty sad. I mean, he has 2 clubs there, and the 5 is free. But that's the whole point. Is like kings are in really bad shape in a lot of setups, essentially in a pre-flop all-in.
I mean, look at these aces. I mean, they are insanely bad aces too. So if the aces had suits to go with it as well, he would be even in worse shape.
I'm still rooting for a king though. Bring it.
Don't mind if I do.
King.
Don't mind if I don't.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Jack.
Please. Take a jack, please.
Unlucky.
Rats.
Deserved.
Of course, the
Well
crap
deserved
Queen
loss.
355 wins there. And welcome to PLO, guys, you know. In fact, they both flop a set and then he backdoors into a straight. Beautiful game.
The other guy won it. It's pretty nice. Nice little set.
Nice little set. It made a straight.
Actually, it's entertaining, and we see typical mistakes No Limit Holdem guys make. And yeah, if you guys try to transist from No Limit to Pot Limit Omaha, this is very educational.
It was set over set into his backdoors into a straight. Solid open.
Easy open.
I wonder if Charlie uses like color
If you're
coding.
enjoying the way that I'm speaking about poker, teaching poker, I do have a website, charliecarrel.com. Link is in the description.
He has a website and he's teaching poker and he wants to advertise his site. I mean, seeing these plays, you probably should not follow his advice. I also think No Limit Holdem, he's like, we don't use GTO, we just go exploitative approach. All this is not necessary. So I would say you're probably better off of going to other coaching sites than his.
Below, you'll find on there a mindset masterclass, which I think is the most important, teaching you how to deal with tilt, anxieties.
Okay, mindset is very important, that's true. So maybe he's good in mindset things.
Ambition, things like that.
CharlieCarrel.com, guys. I don't mind the free ad, obviously. We're also using his video. But I'm definitely convinced that he has good learning material. Check it out.
I think he has not. To be honest. Although I'm using his video. But I want to stay honest with you.
He calls a squeeze of king, queen, jack, jack. Yeah, this is fine. Like, again, this hand has a rough time outflopping aces, but probably too strong to fold. It is okay in a three-way pot, like without
I think this is very close, so you probably don't make a huge mistake folding and calling. I mean, at least he's not shoving it in because he has jacks, and in No Limit Holdem you can get in jacks.
Queen high suit. Let's look it up. Would I call this hand? Yes. But is it making a lot of money? Probably not. I mean, definitely not. So he opens, what is this? The cutoff? No, MP.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is a fold, by the way, but let's see what happens.
Button calls, and we do see, wait, can't remember the positions. Like, what's up? Small blind squeezes, king, queen, queen, jack. Does he even have king, queen, queen, jack? He has king, queen, jack, jack. Come on. It's hard to remember 4 cards, as you can tell. Okay, so the hand is calling, and with a queen high suit, you're at minus 311. So the fold, right, is minus 3.5. So you're close to the EV of folding, but calling is just slightly better. King high suit would do considerably better, obviously. It is still a call, but it is close to the break-even mark. Not a huge deal. Obviously, if you pay a little bit more rake, which is the case in this specific setup here than in the model behind, like the GTO model, like it becomes close. It is a close hand. But assuming A, good run, and then B, skill, edge, question mark, over the field.
Skill edge. Yeah, we saw his huge skill edge as he pushed in the kings. And was he doing? Oh yeah, in the trips play was also horrible. So yeah, probably we can probably not assume a skill edge.
You want to continue here.
Imagine.
This is a sad flop. Yeah, you got a blocker, but the value of blockers as No Limit Holdem goes down as the stack to pot ratio goes down as well.
True, and who is folding aces here? And his opponent will have aces a lot.
Imagine trying to bluff someone when the SPR is 0.5, you know? Like, probably not going to work. And in this case, it's very similar. Although you do have that jack of clubs, your opponent, the small blind, has aces very often and is not going to fold against the jam given the price he's going to get facing the jam and drawing to a boat, right? So this is not... I mean, it is a spot where if you face a check, you could consider turning your hand into a bluff. I think it would be a very credible bluff. Like if you're trying to bluff into a range which is heavy in sets, you will get a lot of value. The problem is only that in order for the bluff to work, your opponent has to be not hitting his boat and folding the hand he has. So you want to be generally careful.
And he probably also has, if his opponent knows him or his YouTube channel, he probably has a reputation for being very bluffy, so I probably would not bluff here, but let's see what happens. I mean, if your opponent bets, you can throw away your hand, but the only question is if you should bluff if check too.
Just because like your bluff becomes completely worthless once the board pairs and you will lose the hand every single time, in combination with the fact that sometimes your opponent does have flopped the nut flush, for example, and is not going to fold anyway. And for that reason, you got to be careful bluffing in this spot. Like, you don't want to overdo it generally, especially not three ways. Like the guy in the button can still have the nuts.
Aces. It's going to have a lot of aces. We're going to have a lot of flushes.
Uh-oh. And that's the thing, is like if you have a high flush, you generally want to raise on the flop because you're trying to extract max value from aces. So like how credible is the story of calling? Well, you're representing like a medium flush that is calling to see what the button is going to do in response.
I think calling is, if he tries to take it away later, calling is not too bad actually. So, but yeah, I probably would still just fold, especially with his reputation.
And the thing is,
and also one guy behind.
It's like, if you didn't have the gutter, like this would be a complete punt. With the gutter, it becomes a little bit better. And also, if you have the queen of clubs, it becomes considerably better because...
Yeah, with the queen of clubs, it's way better.
The guy on the button cannot have that hand. And also, the small blind can't have that hand. So I would say this hand against $20 is going to be okay. Like you're not... Like it would be much better if you're closing the action and the guy in between already folded. I would say this is quite close. It is not a punt, but it is definitely close.
Do I want to try and bluff him off aces?
Well,
It seems really wild, but it seems kind of like it could be funny.
I told you he loves bluffing. If you raise now, I don't think this is going to work, honestly. Unless he doesn't have aces. If he has ace-king, like, it's probably going to work. He goes for the min-raise. You know, it's interesting because if you did have a flush, would you really min-raise? Because you're trying to charge your opponent as much as you can when he has a set and is drawing to a boat. So, like, raising bigger would actually make more sense. But obviously, that's...
Although he's setting up a good turn shove, right? So, not that unusual, I would say, to see a min raise here.
pretty expensive, so...
It seems so unbelievable when I just min raise.
Oh!
On the other hand, he gives himself a very good price on the bluff. Yeah, worked out. Nicely done.
All right,
He is the master in the end. You know, he had something. He has something. I think he probably should not have gotten in there pre-flop because this junky queens definitely don't want to call an open race. But yeah, now he has the nuts. Let's see how he plays it. I think he should have bet out. I mean, what should his opponents have to bet here in a multi-way pot? He should bet out 100%.
Conventional line, it worked. This hand here seems wild as well. It looks like he defended queen 9-5 rain bow in the small blind. This is a snap fold unless you know you're gonna hit a set. Should you lead out though? And I would say the answer is yes. Like, you shouldn't expect in a four-way pot for people to give you action by themselves by just betting. Especially if the board is very dry like this, you will see tons of mid pairs and even kings and aces check the flop. Given how
one more reason why I like the bet is you giving free cards to people with in total 12 cards in hands, and they can easily hit a gut shot or stuff, and you need a bit of protection even on a dry board like this.
Many players enter the pot, and your hand in particular needs a lot of protection because you have no backdoor flush draw and basically no backdoor straight draw. So you kind of want to just charge your opponent's aces and kings, and I would lead on the flop here for something like half pot, which will make it more difficult for opponents to fold aces and kings. If you obviously lead really large, your opponents are just going to be like, it's a four-way pot, he bets $18, I'm going to fold.
That's the set of dishwashers, man.
Which is not what you want. So you want to see, you would want to see a half pot size lead here. Wow, quads.
Quads of dishwashers. I guess we just check.
Yes.
Check again. It's so unlikely that you get any action from anything.
Good.
More dishwashers over here as well.
I mean, checking turn because no protection required, and you probably won't get any action.
Just gotta hope somebody boats up on the river, I guess.
Although Charlie has a loose image, so he might be good betting the turn, maybe representing a flush draw. I'm not sure what happened there.
Checking quads. Call it protecting range.
On the river, I would definitely not check. You're trying to get called here by aces and kings. And like 5-6 is not a guaranteed hand to bet for you. This game plays very nitty on the river.
I think 5-6 should bet how the action went, but is it calling a raise? Maybe, maybe not. And yeah, I think on the river it's time to try to extract some value from whatever. And yeah, I also would go with JNandez line and bet out.
Especially in multi-way situations. So I would just bet yourself.
Call it whatever you want. I ain't betting.
I don't think this trap's going to work very often, basically.
You're getting more value.
Unlucky.
All right, here.
What happened here? I mean, was it? I don't know what the action was, so it's very hard to judge this play. He's probably just going after him because the bet size is so small and he sees weakness. And this often works out, actually, so I think that's not too bad. You probably should also follow up on the river. I mean, he's at least blocking a high heart. Would be a lot better if he had the ace of hearts. So if he is doing this play with ace of hearts and queen of hearts, he probably is bluffing way too much. But yeah, this is Charlie Carrel, and we don't care about GTO and frequencies. And this is actually right against many opponents who also don't pay close attention to what you are doing.
We've checked.
Ooh. Spicy. I'm not sure what happened pre, so there's 28 in the middle. So the flop action would be really interesting. I guess he just called based on his playing style pre-flop and then check called the flop. Like, this is the hand you want to check raise the flop with, because you have basically no turns to kind of continue on. There's like nothing you're waiting for, so to speak. There's no equity you can turn, is what I'm trying to say.
Well explained. I mean, as I said, we don't know what happened pre-flop.
But at the same time, you have very relevant blockers. 2 queens, a queen of hearts, and a king. Perfect hand to check raise the flop. You can also lead the flop. Check calling, not advisable. And now he goes for the check. I'm pretty sure like check call flop and then check raise turn. Not in love. Like, the betting range on the turn should be really polarized. Like, the sizing indicates otherwise. Like, this sizing is not advisable. Like on this turn, there's no hand that wants to bet this sizing inferior. Like, you either have a really strong hand which wants to go for 2 streets, or you just check back. Let's say you have like a medium flush. You need no protection, and your hand is not good enough to bet 2 streets, so you just check back. So I'm not really sure what this is, and therefore,
I mean, this could make sense with like a low flush, like a free showdown bet, but yeah, this you choose the worst opponent for this sort of bet, because he will sense weakness and then go after it.
it's kind of hard to judge if check raising is good or bad. Like, if the guy on the button bets pot and you check raise, it's definitely a punt. But if he bets this sizing, we suddenly are in like creativity land, and you can read into this that he's weak. And then check raise, because check calling is impossible. So yeah, you want to check raise or check fold, and it all comes down to like what you make of this bet size.
Turn. We're just gonna be potting.
It works. Nice.
Assuming he doesn't have the nut flush when he goes that size.
Yeah, I think
that's why you
play
need, like,
was good.
That's
I mean,
why it helps to have reads, right?
his pre-flop play and flop play probably not, but at least the turn play.
Right, labels and reads, like color codings and reads, and say this guy double barrels flush completing turn for small size.
Yeah, I already said sort of the same thing. He's just articulating before. I mean, earlier in the video.
I think fold versus raise. The thing is, like, when the button chooses to use this strategy, like bet small on the flush completing turn card, it is a strategy that he came up with. Like, he didn't saw someone else doing it, or it wasn't like an obvious decision. It is some strategy that he basically uses, and it's most likely bound to some specific hands that he thinks are good to play that way. And therefore, I think a note in this specific situation is useful down the road anyway, because it's like his personal strategy, which is probably not a good strategy and also an exploitable one. Most likely, right?
Yeah, it could be the case that he's not taking notes because he's not playing PLO anyways, or just for fun in one session and then never again. So, but in general, if you play more often and are regular in the game, definitely take notes on your opponents and their tendencies.
So we only got through 7 minutes of the footage. I'm going to cut the video here after one more hand and then do another part, especially if you guys like it. So make sure to smash the like button. Head over also to Charlie Carrel's YouTube channel. He releases tons of videos. And also one thing I want to mention.
Yeah, I also, if you like it, let me know in the comments, and yeah, push the like button, because I will do another video with Charlie if you like it and if it gets a lot of views. If not, then I stop here.
Is that I have learned so much in the last 15 years playing poker from No Limit Holdem players, because the game is not more advanced, definitely not more advanced, but because the game is better explored, given that solvers have been on the market for longer, but also people have been playing and learning and exploring the game for longer, and also more people have been exploring the game, you will find very high-level thinkers in No Limit Holdem, and high level in terms of poker.
I'm not sure if Charlie is one of them, though.
And that could be poker theory, GTO, but also exploitative mindset stuff. So I have learned a lot from different No Limit Holdem players in the past, and I still am. And I think if you play PLO, it definitely is worthwhile checking out some of the No Limit Holdem players that make content out there, because it can help you to learn more about the game and then translate that into PLO. Last hand.
I think that's not happening that often, but yeah, sometimes there are some concepts that you can use sort of too. So yeah, he's not completely wrong, but also I think, yeah, you probably don't get too much from No Limit content, but often No Limit content is still fun, and I also watch it from time to time, although mainly a PLO player.
Next best hand.
And I think Charlie's definitely a good guy for it in terms of learning more about poker. I also watched an interesting discussion between Charlie and Dominic Nietzsche about solvers and stuff. It was definitely cool as well, like a podcast.
No idea.
Okay, so here I assume that given the pot size, Charlie was 3-betting. This is not a hand you want to 3-bet. Like if at all, you want to 3-bet this hand double suited, but not single. Single, it is more of a hand that is like a pulling hand where you don't mind multiple players in the pot, like you're pulling other players into the pot because your hand is not so smooth. It doesn't perform that well in a small
Very good explanation by him.
SPR situation. You kind of want to have a large SPR with this one.
Ace.
Yeah, after he 3-bet, we definitely want a continuation bet. We want a continuation bet always on ace-high boards. And we should use a relative small sizing.
Queen.
But it's very common for No Limit Holdem players to like overvalue a couple of high cards. But what really matters is how connected they are and if you're double suited. If you're not double suited and you don't have a pair, you're pretty unlikely to 3-bet. If you look back at this one here. So let's say in this case, who opened? It was MP. So MP opens, you're on the button. And we teach in the PLO Mastermind through categories. So this is somehow post-flop. We teach through categories pre-flop. And the category that would involve here, 1 second, would be, we have no pair, right? So RR is a pair basically. So I'm removing all the pairs and our hand is not double suited, right? And then if you can see on the right-hand side, the frequency here drops to 0.7%. So if your hand has no pair and is not double suited, your 3-bet frequency will be very narrow and contains basically 4 Broadway cards, which are very connected. Like those are the only 3-bets. And obviously the deuce is a dangler here. Doesn't count to it, or it's not part of the 4-card connectors. And if you look at no pair double suited hands, the frequency goes up to 22.1. So there's a big difference between having an unpaired single suited hand and an unpaired double suited hands when it comes to 3-betting. Way more hands are 3-betting if they are double suited. This particular hand, ace, queen, jack, deuce, is quite gappy though. Like most of the combos are just flatting. And if your hand would be a little bit better connected or quite a bit better connected, then you end up like 3-betting a lot more. I guess 7 is like the cutoff point here. Like ace, queen, jack, 7 is like a very high frequency 3-bet. Anyway, in a 3-bet pot on ace, queen, 6, I would generally employ like a 1-bet size strategy, which in this case could be something like half pot. You can also bet this small. It's a little bit, it is a little bit small, like you're offering really good odds for your opponent to outdraw aces here, because people can have a lot of straight draws, backdoor flush draw potential, and the price is really good. So your range advantage still allows you to bet full range for a half pot in this case, which in this case I would do. The main thing you want to pay attention to is that you're able to still get all the money in the middle with your range advantage, which is going to be possible regardless of how much you bet, like 1/3 or half pot or full pot. But in terms of simplifying,
Yeah, full pot seems like a very bad sizing. So 1/3 or half, both are fine, as he already mentioned.
all the bets to one bet size, like half pot.
He could bet, wants to bet bigger once it becomes more draw heavy, but this is quite dry.
That's good, so that you're not offering too good of a price for your opponent to outdraw the aces. And like in an exploitative way, this hand in particular makes a lot of sense to bet larger because you actually have no backdoor flush draw yourself and also no straight draw. And therefore betting larger for protection is good, and also to simplify your life on turns and rivers, because this hand will have trouble holding a strong hand by the river given the lack of good runouts. Like this is one of the best turn cards, right? Like you turn 3 pair and have a flush draw blocker. He goes for the 78% which is fine. I wouldn't click this fast, because if you would find the bluff here, would be something like a queen, maybe with a diamond and a straight draw that you would turn into a bluff. And I don't think that a lot of people will come up with that kind of bluff within like 2 seconds. But,
Do that.
you know, timing tells. Timing tells. Not saying that this guy necessarily reads into the timing tell, by the way.
Aces.
Yeah, so you open, okay, let's do this as the last hand. You open aces in the cutoff, small blind calls, big blind calls. If small blind plays a proper range, like king, jack, jack is a really good board, because as we saw before, king, king calls a lot in the small blind, and there aren't many other hands that will call. So king, king, as well as king, jack calls a ton in the small blind, and your hand is pretty dead against those hands. So it's a fine check back on the flop to kind of trap. But if your opponent is a loose passive recreational player, like, it also makes sense to bet just to extract value from a king or flush draws or get those hands to fold.
Oh, Jack Dangler's got us in good shape.
So turn is a 7. This is a great example. Like, you have no diamond in your hand and you can represent king, king, and king, jack. So like betting large, I think, can make sense. Depends also on your opponent's willingness to fold a flush.
So he now wants to turn our hand into a bluff and get out of flush draw. I mean, I like betting more if we don't have another pair in our hand, because then we got less full house outs. I probably would also, against many opponents, bet flop, because we got trips.
Yeah, like, given that he's 50 big blinds deep, he will probably 3-bet like quite a few king-king combos there pre. So actually, I think betting turn shoving river is a good idea here. Let's see. Okay.
I'm gonna do that.
This is a misclick?
I know it seems weird.
Yes.
It might just be terrible. I think we're okay.
Imagine opponent folding.
I think it's probably a better plan to just check turn. And not turning the hand into a bluff.
Oh no. And now?
Tell me of kings.
Oh my god. Imagine he has kings now. This would be the most ridiculous hand ever.
Everything. Hopefully he doesn't. Okay, believe us.
He has king jack. Oh my god, what a river.
King jack, huh?
Yeah, this was very lucky. Not even sure if he should call the turn raise.
What a beautiful ending into the first part. Again, 8 minutes in, 20 minutes in total. I'm super happy that Charlie was playing PLO, so I can review some of his hands, and it's really fun. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button.
Yeah, it was definitely fun for me. I hope it was also enjoyable for you guys. Yeah, like, subscribe, share, bell notification that you get notified once a new video is out. And yeah, also consider to check out my other channel, to check out my Twitch and my Twitch account and my Twitter account. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck at the tables. Bye bye.